understand how the New Testament was taken from the ancient world and rearranged into a religion today. But if you can get past all of that and get to the actual metaphysical stories, the metaphors in the New Testament, it's a world of knowledge that's been hidden. But an example is that what we were just talking about, how the people themselves love the darkness. They can't get enough of it, and they will always support it. There's a story in the Bible and the New Testament about Jesus being brought before the people by Pontius Pilate, and he says to the Pontius Pilate says to the crowds of the city that once a year, according to your custom, I can release one prisoner to you and let one prisoner go. So I have two prisoners here today. We have Jesus, who we call the light of the world, and then we have Barabbas. Barabbas is a known criminal, a liar, a murderer. We know he's a criminal. So here are the two people. Well, that's a symbolic story. It's a metaphor. And the symbolism of the story is very simple. When you present to the world of mankind two different ideologies, one is based on the light and truth and decency and honor, or the other one is based on the darkness and evil and criminality, which one would you choose, Jesus or Barabbas? And the Bible says, with one voice, the town said, give us Barabbas. Which is symbolically saying, as a metaphor, symbolically saying, when the people of this world are faced with, do you want the real truth or do you want lies? They will always support the lie. Give us Barabbas. We don't want the truth in the light. We don't want to hear anything about truth. We didn't come down here to hear truth. So give us the lie. Give us the people who are telling us lies. That's what a democracy is. I mean, a democracy is the rule of the people, and the people love the lie.
The majority rules, and it doesn't matter how insane the majority is either. It just keeps on
not
trucking,
at all.
you know. Yeah.
No, keeps on going, and we know the decadency of the Roman system, and how today all you have to do is look around America today and look at the decadent, incredible darkness that has engulfed this great country, so that there's ignorance, ill-informed stupidity, violence, drug addiction, gang wars, prisons. This is a hellhole, and yet the church is doing real fine. The church is just doing fine. But the people who go to those churches, talk to them, intellectually sit down and talk to Christians today in America, and you will find they don't know what they're doing. They haven't got the faintest idea in the world what the words mean, what the concepts mean, where anything came from, the etymology of the concepts and the ideas and the words that are used in religion. They haven't got the faintest idea in the world and couldn't care less, because it has nothing to do with football or basketball or Paris Hilton or anything else of any importance. So I'm just saying, it's just an amazing situation we have.
Well, it is, and also the chaos that you're describing here is also something that at the end of it serves the church and especially the government as well, because of course now they can implement further control, to try to bring stability to the streets, blah blah blah. But again, from the church point of view, this is like fuel for the fire. This is evidence that the Antichrist or Satan is out there on the streets, and that's why you need to turn back to the church, right?
Yeah, and it works out so much. When you start talking to the politicians and these guys who make the policy and know how this stuff is put together, and you begin to see this is really dark stuff. And that's why I said the people in this country especially, but all over, because I spent a lot of time in Europe also, and in the Middle East. And as I love the European people, but I notice, like America, they don't know what they're doing. They haven't got the faintest idea of what's going on. Nobody questions anything, and if you do,
I think it's worse actually in Europe. I hear a lot more, at least vocal people from the States that are questioning their government and so forth as well. But people are criticizing the European Union. Very few voices, unfortunately, from Europe.
Well, you're right. You're right, and I think it's more. I think it's kind of like inbred in the European to be afraid of government because they have been so mistreated by the church, and so it's just a feeling that the peoples of Europe have, that there's been so much horrible oppression that they don't want to put themselves out there on the front lines.
Physical torture in most cases, and those few who had the guts to stand up against this and say no, those people were strapped up on poles, and tortured. And in many regards as well. Do you think now then that this is kind of ingrained into the the genetic memory almost of the people?
Absolutely, no doubt about it. We scientifically we know that's true. That there's a group mentality, a community mentality where peoples they may not have today have been a part of and actually saw it happen, but it's it goes back to their parents, their grandparents have told them stories, and the great grandparents told them stories, and so it's kind of in the national psyche and the psyche of the peoples to remember that government can be very, very, and of course with the coming of Adolf Hitler in Germany and in Europe, people are frightened of government. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to go there. At least in America, there's enough of the American spirit. There's not a whole lot left. We have the spirit. We just don't have any knowledge. We have the spirit because there's a lot of anarchy and violence and that kind of thing in the American people, in the American psyche, carrying guns and fighting on the streets. We got the spirit. We just don't have any education. That's the problem. And so we turn on each other rather than intellectually finding out who is doing what to us and do something about it. We just fight each other. So
that's too
America
bad.
has the spirit. America has the spirit, but they don't have the knowledge. So often, before we leave, there's a couple of things I want to make sure people understand about me.
Sure.
One is that I am not an activist, a political activist or a social activist at all. Period. I've never been an activist for anything. And I'm not a party to any movement, truth movement, or any group movement like that, or any social movement. I've never been a member of any of it, ever. And so when people, I want to clarify that because so many people put me in the truth movement or in
right.
some kind of an activist movement, patriot movement. I've never joined any patriot movement. People will put me into these things and say things about me, but for myself, I've never joined any patriot movement, no truth movement, or anything else.
Yeah.
I just doing what I've always done. As far back as a child, I was always asking too many questions and beginning to see how things work. And so I just want people
you're walking
to
your
know
own
that,
path, Jordan. In that
sense. I'm just walking my own path to my own desires to learn and to know. And I appreciated other people in my life who were like that when I was growing up, who were out there on the cutting edge doing their own thing and helping me when I wanted to know. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just giving it back to humanity, the help that I was given. I'm just trying to turn around and give out wisdom and knowledge and understanding to those people who want to know.
Yeah.
So I'm not a part of any truth movement or any activist of any kind.
Well, same here. I think the people make the assumption because it sounds right to them, or according to their own philosophy or whatnot. So they bunch you together with all these other groups out there and what have you. Yeah.
Right. And that another thing along that line that it irritates me terribly is when people will hear me say something in some lecture 10 years ago, and it stuck with them. Then about 6 years ago, I said something on another lecture, and then last week I said something on the radio, and now they will put what they've heard all together and come up with a whole new thing that I've said that I didn't say at all. And I get that continually, daily. I get emails, people say, well, Jordan, you said this and that. I never said any of that ever. I said 1/4 of that, but that was 10 years ago. I said another quarter, but that was like 8 years ago.
Right.
Then I said another quarter, but that was last Wednesday.
Well, to them, it's 5 minutes old, you know.
Yeah, they just heard you.
You know? Yeah.
They just heard it.
Yeah.
And so now they go out on the web and say, well, Jordan Maxwell said this and that. I never said that. And so I've come to the point where I just give up. I'm not going to try and clarify anything for anyone, because now my philosophy is today, my philosophy about who I am and what I do is I'm just going to do the best I can with nothing, and that's the way I've always worked, with nothing. I'm going to do the best I can, and whoever is supposed to hear me will, and whoever's not supposed to hear me won't.
Right.
And whatever you take away from whatever I've said, whatever you get from it is what you get. And if you don't like it, well, that's all right too. So I don't care if people understand anymore, and if they're misquoting me and attributing things I never said. I've come to the point where I don't care. I'm just going to do what I do, and if you're smart enough to hear what I'm saying and do some research on your own, you'll see what I'm talking about.
It's not that difficult. I mean, take what you can and leave the rest. That's what I've always said.
Of course,
yeah.
Go back to rest.
Yeah.
I'm not running for office. I don't care one way or the other. I just do what I do.
Right. Well, you do it very well, you know, from my point of view. And again, this is not about, as we talked about last time, Jordan, this is not about being in total agreement with every single point here. You know, this is about exchanging ideas and make people think. And in most regards, unfortunately, again, by focusing on the negative, that is what makes people think. That is also what makes them thinking about what is positive in their own lives, which is at the end of the day a good thing. So, you know, job well done.
You know,